Hi everyone, Anthony for you here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Hermit and the Recluse album, Orpheus vs. the Sirens. This is the new debut album from the hip-hop duo, the Hermit and the Recluse, which you might think is a brand new duo that nobody's ever heard of yet, but it in fact features two guys who have quite a bit of weight in the hip-hop underground. Producer Animoss, who is maybe most notable for his frequent and close collaborations with Mr. Rock Marciano, and also Brownsville's own Ka, whose music I've covered on the channel a few times already. I highly recommend his album, The Knight's Gambit. If you're unfamiliar with Ka, you should know that the dude has a totally idiosyncratic rap style. His verses have flow, but hit a very slow, relaxed pace, almost similar to that of spoken word. His delivery is pretty low-key to say the least, so because he's not hitting listeners with these speedy runs of bars, he takes the time to write these really dark, poetic verses that you can really stew in and think over. A lot like a Pusha T, Ka is very much quality over quantity of the lyrics that you're hearing in any given song. But while Ka consistently brings coded lingo, smart wordplay, vivid imagery, truth be told, it's not very hard-hitting, it's not very physical, because Ka is not an author of bangers, rather he uses hip-hop to create a theater of the mind-like experience, where the grim criminal themes in his storytelling are presented in kind of a dramatic and noir fashion. And producer Animoss is very well suited to fit this tone, fit Ka's style. Given his ability to support the supremely subdued Rock Marciano, working with a guy like Ka just seems like a natural fit. It's clear both parties have quite a bit in common artistically, and maybe even personally too, just given the pseudonym of both musicians on this record, the Hermit and the Recluse, basically interchangeable terms. And there is something supremely solitary, isolating, and maybe even antisocial about the music that they make together on this album. There is a lyric on the album where Ka says there's purity in obscurity, which says a lot about his music's ethos, but with that also comes a helping of mythos on this album, with the clear nod to Greek mythology via Orpheus, as tidbits of his story from the Argonautica are presented throughout this album via samples of an adaptation, I'm not sure which one. That kind of segues the album from one track to another in an attempt to draw parallels between the musical mission of Orpheus himself and Animoss and Ka as a duo in this collaboration, using music as a tool to charm and inspire and drown out the destructive sirens that, figuratively in this case, are causing sailors to crash their boats into the rocks. Given that this is a Ka album, of course this whole Greek mythology thing is much more than skin deep, as it runs through many of the lyrics on this record as well. As the participants in the Argonaut story, they're out a-questing for the Golden Fleece, which Ka also names a song after, and that Golden Fleece is a symbol for something that he gets into in the lyrics. Lonely streets not known for peace, never rest, forever quest, Golden Fleece, the Argonauts. I want compassion from the highest, food for the lowest, cures for the afflicted, rules for the homeless, direction for the misled, heat for the coldest, love for the lonely, peace for the soldiers. The instrumentals on this album, almost without exception, are beautiful, they're eerie, they set a wonderful tone for Ka's lyrics. I love the gorgeous and airy string samples throughout the track Sirens, the dramatic and cinematic funk rock passages on the track Fate, the chilling and experimental new age ambience of the song ARGO, the drony synthesizers and soaring psychedelic guitar leads on the cut Orpheus. Nearly everything on this album sounds like it was sampled out of like an exploitation film soundtrack in the 70s, but somehow warped, manipulated, adjusted, and embellished to sound really depressing. Now, in the grander scheme of things, maybe this album isn't that much different than a lot of the material Ka has put out in the past, though I will say I do think this album surpasses Honor Killed the Samurai and his recent kind of underwhelming Dr. Yenlo project, and for a few different reasons. I mean, this album is super short, super tight at 10 tracks and 30 minutes. The Greek mythology themes that run throughout are pretty smart and captivating and make this record a very unique experience. Also, Ka I find to be lyrically sharper than ever, as there are countless quotables flowing throughout this entire album. Too many to name. Honestly, I would have to just read through the lyrics for the rest of this review, though I will try to read off of a couple that stood out to me. Left to fill, dressed to kill, nothing I wore peaceful. Most these fucks is ducks. Don't let 'em all geese you. Geese you. I love it. I love this set of bars right here, but it's kind of a twister because of the internal rhymes. Living livid, I ain't pivot when it was pivotal. Since natal held a stable and shit it was most critical. How I'm unique is if I speak it, I have visual, but careful because everything I say is admissible. And the third verse of The Punishment of Sisyphus really to me is one of the strongest on the entire record, and should put Ka in a position, for anybody who cares about lyrics, to be considered one of the best writers in the hip-hop genre of this decade. Learned many lessons from women, the biggest was forgiveness, and possibly generosity, taught me giving is a privilege. Fought for respect, had to be the villain of the village, 'cause the only ones chillin' was the ones willing to pillage. Armed for strong arm, and too impatient to plan a heist, and how you handle fights determine if you man or mice. But soon taught the same true sport. If you a fan of life, start to gather what you rather, 6 feet, or get hand of vice. I choose the op to excuse a lot, just don't deceive me. Not at all spoiled if the hard-boiled never got over easy. Where it's clear it's never acceptable to turn to Jakes, I impress to you, become a vegetable or learn the stakes. So there are a few lyrical tidbits from the record that I think are really great, but if you want to get that pure sense of drama and cautionary storytelling that is so potent on this album, you have to listen to the entire thing. You have to listen to a full track. Now, even though this album might not be the most groundbreaking thing in rap, most groundbreaking thing for Ka, it's still a pretty unique release. Citizen Cope's sung vocals, if I'm going to throw another critique out there on the track Hades, were also kind of awkward in my opinion. The instrumentals, while they do set a good dramatic tone and they have a great aesthetic to them, I occasionally do wish they had a bit more progression or weren't quite so redundant. Mostly on the track Oedipus, whose horn loop is just really tight and really incessant and pretty loud too in comparison with Ka's voice, almost drowns him out. The beats on this thing that work the best are those that give Ka enough room to kind of work with the space around his voice, add some interesting overdubs or do some other weird reverby vocal experiments that add to the storytelling and the imagery of what he's saying. And again, even though Ka's rap style, it's pretty one-dimensional, it's not very versatile, you kind of see what you get and you know what to expect. I still love the fuck out of this record. I mean, the flow of the tracks on this thing is fantastic. I like the narrative, I like that Greek mythology, the lyricism is top tier. His delivery is pretty cold-blooded and I do enjoy that. The album is pretty tight too, as I stated before. It doesn't overstate its welcome. I mean, not only is this record some of the best material Ka has dropped in a while, but I feel like this album might be an album that I recommend first to people who are new to this guy because it's such a fantastic record, and why it's fantastic is so obvious on the surface level. It hits you with that really cool concept. The lyrics are clearly fantastic. Ka's style, while it may not be visceral, it certainly stand out, and the production marries so well with what he's doing too. I'm feeling a strong 8 to a light 9 on this thing. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like, please subscribe, and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, the Recluse and the Hermit, forever.